Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you an original tune that he wrote, which we are calling Rolling Pumpkins. Now, my favorite thing about this tune is how it sounds and how it makes you feel. To me, this is a song that's kind of like Monster Mash. And I don't mean that it sounds like Monster Mash. I mean that it feels like Monster Mash. Because when you listen to Monster Mash, it's just a happy, feel-good Halloween tune. And that's the exact same feel I get from Rolling Pumpkins, is that it just makes you feel good when you hear it and when you play it. And it mixes in just a little bit of spookiness to give it that Halloween tinge. So this is going to be a lot of fun for folks to jump into. And I will go ahead and say too that I did get a chance to play through all of the arrangement. And I think it's going to be best suited for the seasoned intermediate player. And there's a couple reasons why I think it's a little bit more challenging. And the first one is that it's played with a swung rhythmic feel. So if you need a recap on the difference between playing with a straight feel versus a swing feel, you want to jump into this lesson, which I'll link in the description box below. The other thing too is there is a section that uses eighth note triplet rhythm. So if you need a recap on what that is, I'll link that in the description box below as well. And last but not least, the last thing that makes this tune a little bit challenging is that there are some bar chords, but they're bar chords that are not the normal ones. Like when we think of a bar chord, we think of like a D7 like that. This one's going to make your fingers contort in some pretty uncomfortable shapes. So if you need a recap on proper left hand technique for doing bar chords, not only in front of the neck, but what's happening behind the neck, we've got 2 lessons that we'll link in the description box as well. So with all that said, let's take a step back. Let's talk about this lesson. So in this video, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play the entire tune. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for Rolling Pumpkins. Now also on that page will be the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish, just a great asset in learning this tune that much easier. Alright, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this. Don't forget to grab the high G ukulele, and I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hello! In today's video we're going to learn a tune I wrote called Rolling Pumpkins. This one's a lot of fun, uses some strumming and some finger picking. Let's go ahead and dive in, bringing the camera down. So to start here, we're going to begin with a hammer-on technique where we're going to play open on the C string and then hammer on to the 2nd fret of that C string with the middle finger. This acts as the sort of pickup bar to do this. Now for my playing hand, I like to use my thumb to pluck that C string. I'm maybe kind of assuming 3 finger picking, which means my thumb's on the C, my index on the E, my middle on the A, and my thumb rotates between the G and C strings. This is a high G specific tune. You could try it on low G, but it's going to sound a little bit funky. But we're going to start with that hammer on. And that starts into the first measure now of the tune. We're going to continue by playing the 1st fret on the E string with our index finger here. Open on the G, so using our thumb here. And then we're going to play the 3rd fret on the A string, building our first chord. 3rd fret here with our ring finger. This is sort of a G7 sus4. It's more functioning as a D minor. The name's not too important. It's more the sound. It sounds cool, right? So after I've played that 3 on the A, I'm then going to come up and then go down as a normal strum technique using my index finger with that sort of swing feel. Now that finishes the first bar after we then play the open on the C again to kind of pick it back up. So it's actually easier to hear this as a little 2-bar phrase with the pickup bar than it is to play it as an individual bar. So with that in mind, the end of measure 1 starts with the open C, then we're going to hammer on again to the 2nd fret of the C string. That begins measure 2. We're going to play the same 1 on the E, open on the G, and now we're going to play 2 on the A. So the ring finger moves down here, the 2nd fret of the A string, pluck that. Now we're playing this sort of G7 chord, right? 0, 2, 1, 2. We do an up and then down. before ending this measure with kind of the open on the C. But again, that little open on the C at the end of measure 2 is starting into measure 3. So it's okay when you're playing this to kind of forego that and try to play that as a little pickup into the bars as you learn them. All that being said, this is what measures 1 and 2 with the pickup bar sound like, something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Pretty cool. Now we go on to measures 3 and 4. Again, we sort of start with that same little hammer on. So the 2 on the C is the beginning of it. We're going to play the E string, G string, and then the A string again. But this time we're going to fret it with our index finger. This is kind of tricky. We're going to be collapsing our bar here. So our index finger, instead of just being on the first fret of the E string, now collapses to be a partial bar across the first fret of both the E and the A strings. And we're going to pluck that 1 on the A, and then we're going to come up and down on that same piece. Okay. Then we're going to do the same little hammer on, and the 1 on the E, open on the G, open on the A, and do an up down now, finally just open on the A string. So that 2-bar phrase builds off of what we did earlier, just adding a little bit more, and it should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... You can hear it's kind of hard to count it in and not play that little hammer-on part, so it's okay when you're practicing it to always kind of start with that section. Sounds so good, right? Now what's cool about this is when we go on to measures 5 and 6, well, measures 5 and 6 are actually exactly the same as what we played on measures 1 and 2. There's no difference whatsoever. We're going to be fretting that same 0, 2, 1, 3 chord and the same 0, 2, 1, 2 chord. So in time, measures 5 and 6 sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. And as we go on to 7 and 8, they start off exactly the same as what we did on 3 and 4. The same first fret to same open. But the difference is at the end of measure 8, instead of just doing an up down on the 0, 2, 1, 0, that little chord there, we're going to instead switch chords to be this sort of F sharp diminished D7 chord. That's going to be played as 2, 0, 2, 0. I like to use my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string and my ring finger on the 2nd fret of the E string here. I'm going to go up, down on that chord instead. So measure 8 has this sort of little bit of variation, and this chord draws into this next sort of melody section, right? So that you can hear it though, here's measures 7 and 8 together, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. Pretty cool, right? This sort of finishes the melody A of this piece. So to hear it all through, here's the pickup bar all the way through measure 8. Should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. Pretty cool, right? From here we go on into the next melody section, and this one's a little bit more challenging, but a lot more fun. And the other part I do think is fun. This is just, it's really, really fun to play. So it's going to be the same type of melodic sequence that we just played, but now over a G minor chord. So we're going to be kind of building this 0, 7, 6, 5 chord throughout the whole thing with our ring, middle, and index fingers on the C, E, and A strings. So you see it's 7 on the C with the ring, 6 on the E with the middle, and 5 on the A with the index. Now the pinky is going to be doing some stuff. There's going to be some partial bars, all sorts of things going on, but it's all built around this infrastructure, this foundation. So to start here, using that same 3-finger picking, I'm going to pluck my E and A together, and I'm going to immediately do a pull-off to open on the A. And that is a really cool, spicy, very kind of Halloween spooky sound. And then I'm going to play open on the G, and then 6 on the E right after. So it goes. And then there's a little bit of a break there where I hold the 6 for a moment before then plucking the 8 with the pinky finger here on the 8th fret of the A string. And then I'm going to come up, down, just like I do on the other sections of the tune with those strumming parts added. So it sounds like this. Now, what's cool about this is both the open on the G and the 7 on the C are the same note, so they're kind of interchangeable here. A lot of times, I like to play that open G, but if it's more comfortable for you to play the 7 on the C, maybe you're playing with a low G and you just really want to, you might like that one a little bit more. But we have that going into measure 10 now. Same exact thing. So we're going to do the same 5 pull off to open, open G, 6 on the E, but now we're going to fret 7 on the A with the pinky. So what I find helps here is kind of turn your shoulders or your fingers so that they're facing your right shoulder here. See how the fingertips, instead of being straight up and down, kind of angled. That gives you the room to add that pinky in there on the 7th fret of the A. You're going to pluck that, and then you're going to come up, down on it. So those two measures are pretty much the same, just a different note fretted on the A string. It's going to sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... neat, right? Going on to measures 11 and 12, they're going to be the same thing that we just played for the most part. Same little motif with the pull off. But now instead of going to 8 or 7, we go to 6 on the A by collapsing this middle finger. This is tough. It's really hard to get a good collapse here. You might have to reposition. You'll notice sometimes I actually lift up the finger to get a good connection. But it's a partial bar with the middle finger on the 6th fret of the E and A strings with the ring finger still there on the 7th fret of the C string. I recommend practicing this chord in isolation if it's challenging for you. It sure was for me. And we're going to do that same little piece, except now we pluck the 6 on the A and up, down on that chord there. Then from there it goes on to the next measure, which is exactly the same for the most part. But now it's instead going to go to the 5th fret on the A string after that little pull-off motif. And then up, down on that 0, 7, 6, 5. So going back to that foundation chord we've been playing kind of the whole time, that's just the one that we're kind of building into now. Then after you've done the up, down on this chord, it kicks back off into the melody A type of section where you're going to play open on the C to be the pickup into that hammer to the 2nd fret of the C string. So it's less important to practice when you're playing just this melody sequence, but really important when you're trying to move on to the next one. So all that being said, here's what measures 11 and 12 sound like. Something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And from here, it wants to go into the next section. But just so that you can hear it, here's the 4-bar phrase of 9, 10, 11, and 12. This is sort of where it goes to that G minor chord before returning back to our initial melody sequence. It should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now from here it goes on to measures 13 and 14. And what's cool about this is 13 and 14, exactly the same as 1 and 2. And 15 and 16 are exactly the same as 3 and 4. So it's just a repeat of what we already know, which is really nice. So this 4-bar phrase, 13 through 16, exactly the same as 1 through 4, should sound something like this all the way through. 2 and 3 and 4. Pretty neat, right? Going on to measure 17 here, now it's kind of another new melodic sequence. We're going to be playing off this A7 chord. We're going to start here with 0, 1, 0, 1, index finger on the 1st fret of the C string, middle finger on the 1st fret of the A string. Now I'm going to strum through all 4 strings here, and then I'm going to do a pull off to open on the A string. So it goes, and then I'm going to use a lot of high G action here. I'm going to play open on the G, 1 on the E with the index finger, open G again, 1 on the E string again, pull off to 0 on the E string, and then use my middle finger to play 2 on the C string. So that measure looks something like that. And then going into measure 18, I'm going to play open on the E, which is currently open anyways. Then play 2 on the C with the middle finger, that should still be there. And then I'm going to play 1 on the C string with my index finger, which you can actually leave the whole time open. You see that index just kind of sits there the whole time. And then to finish measure 18, I'm going to play 4 on the A string with the pinky, and then slide the pinky up to 7 on the A string to finish that measure 18. So 17 and 18 uses this sort of, A7, C sharp diminished 7 type feel. Really, really cool vibe. Sounds something like this when you play it in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... It's okay to be a little off with the timing on this because it sounds cool to have some little delays just with this chord. I just kind of like messing with the timing a little bit there. But then going on to the next pair of measures here, we're going to go measures 19 and 20. It's going to kind of continue this sort of diminished sound. We're going to slide the pinky up to 8 on the A. We're going to pluck 8 on the A now with that pinky, then 7 on the A with the ring finger, then 5 on the A with the index, and then slide the index down to 4, pluck that, then 5 on the A with the middle, and then index on 4, and then slide down to 1 with that index, and then you're going to play open on the A, and then that goes into measure 20. It kind of just continues this line. We're going to play 1 on the A, and then open on the A, we can do a pull off there if we want, then open on the G, and then up strum on A7, just the index finger here on the first fret of the C string. Isn't that a cool sound? And then from here, it has a little pickup bar back into the main melody that we've been playing since the beginning of the tune. So measures 19 and 20, just this sort of nice melodic line going down the fretboard of the ukulele, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And you can use slides and embellishments as you see fit. It can be a lot of fun to mess around with. Right? You can actually do a lot of different things with it. It's okay to make it your own as you play it. But after I've done that up strum on the A7, again, it goes back into the main melody again. And into that measures 21 and 22, it's going to be exactly the same as what we played on measures 1 and 2. So in time, 21, 22 sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. But now when it continues going on, you can see I went into 23 there. Same thing as what we did on measure 3. But as we go into 24, instead of being as we played before, it's a little bit different here because measure 24 goes to that A7 chord at the end of measure 24, 0, 1, 0, 0. We're going to do an up strum on this, and then we're going to slide this up 3 frets to 4 and add the middle finger on the 4th fret of the A string. And we're going to have that nice little movement. So again, what we do is we start with the 0, 1, 0, 0, we add the 1 on the A string, and then we slide it up those 3 frets to the 0, 4, 0, 4. So it gives you this nice little run as you come up the fretboard. So that you can hear it, here's 23 and 24, a lot of familiar stuff, and then this new little motif. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. Going into measure 25, 26, this is sort of ending the tune. There's a couple more measures after this, but this is the climax of the whole ascent. We're going to, from the 0404, move up to 0707. And you see I'm just sliding the fingers up. Do another up strum here. Do another up strum, sliding up 3 more frets to 010, 010. Another up strum on 013, 013. And then finally, the last up strum here, we're going to go to 013, 012. Now, You can technically just kind of slide this middle finger there, but it's really hard to get a good connection with your fingers crossing like this. So what I do recommend is you actually flip-flop your fingers. So the index comes down to 12 on the A, and the middle goes up to 13 on the C, and you come up on this really cool A7 chord. And we want to do that flip-flop so that we can get a really good stable connection, because as we go into measure 26, we're just letting this ring for a majority of the measure. All right, so that little ascent, we have it come from the 4 and then to 7, 10, 13, flip-flop the fingers, let it ring. And then at the end of 26, we're going to take our fret hand, just mute the strings, give it a nice little pop there, almost like a chunk, but just striking the strings while muted before playing the open on the C, which starts back on the riff. Now, more on that in a moment. Here's what 25 and 26 should sound like, something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. As we go on to measures 27 and 28, we're going to do the riff again, but a little different. And the way we do this is starting the same and then playing the open on the A before playing the open on the G again, then 1 on the E, 2 on the C, and then open on the C, which finishes that measure 27. Before going on to 28, fretting the 2 on the C, and then playing this super spicy chord, this D minor 6/9. 4, 5, 5, 7. To play this is the hardest chord of the song, or one of them. Index fingers can be on the 4th fret of the G. It doesn't have to be a bar, but it can help to keep the finger more flat. Middle finger does a partial bar over the 5th fret of the C, E, and A. Pinky here on the 7 of the A string. And you strike that string, or you can give it a little tremolo strum at the end if you want, right? So 27 and 28 for the end of the tune should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. Nice ending sequence, right? So that you can hear it though, here's going to be the whole sort of ending sequence. I'm actually going to start way back all the way to measure 13 and play just all the way through the end here so that you can really get a good idea of how this melody sounds from that main part into this sort of A7, you know, through the ending. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4. Pretty nice, right? Bring the camera back up. This has a little bit of a bluesy vibe to it, playing off that sort of D minor sound, G minor sound, and this little A7. And so make it your own. Play around with the form, mix and match. It's, you know, that's what's fun about tunes like this, is really making it your own. So I had a ton of fun writing this piece. It's definitely got those Halloween vibes, and I hope you enjoy playing it as much as I enjoyed writing it. As always, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll look forward to seeing you next time on the next lesson here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
All right, guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a lot of fun. This is a feel-good with a little bit of spookiness mixed in Halloween tune. So a great one to add to your repertoire to play at this time of the year. So I do want to give you a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, that was available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for Rolling Pumpkins. Don't forget to, on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can literally hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed learning this, and we'll catch you in the next lesson. Take care.